Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to make a micro stove, and this thing is truly small. It can fit in the palm of your hands, but believe it or not, it can cook an entire meal and make coffee with time to spare. So I'm going to show you this really quick. It's simple. I'll try to get this video in under 20 minutes, but generally my videos tend to be longer, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. But this truly is the type of stove you want to carry hiking and camping. If you don't have a lot of space in your backpack, it's perfect. Also, it'd fit great in a drawer in your kitchen if you have a power outage and you just need something for an emergency to cook, make coffee, whatever you need to do. It will absolutely save the day within a power outage, snowstorm, hurricane, tornado situation, or just a general power outage. So it works great. I'll show you exactly how to put it together. It's super simple. So in this video, I'm going to time how long this will actually burn for, and I'll have to go get my standard cell phone so I can time it because I don't have a good timer on my watch. But anyways, the first thing you need is this little type of case. If you don't have this type of component, let me say I'll put a link in the description where you can order these. They're very cheap and they're really simple, and you can get them from Amazon, have them shipped to you in a matter of a couple of days. But they're really so small, they don't take up any weight in your backpack, and they'll store easily in a kitchen drawer. So with this particular brand of containers, there is a little thing on the top that needs to be removed because it would put out a lot of smell and a lot of smoke. It's probably made out of plastic or some type of paper. So if you do order the ones that I'm recommending from Amazon, make sure you remove this first before you start putting your stove together. So the first thing we have to do is we have to drill about 6 to 8 holes in our small container, and these come in a variety of sizes, but I wanted to demonstrate the smallest micro stove I could get, and I've got some around the greenhouse that are 2 times, 3 times, even 4 times this size, but I just wanted to show you how even something this small could be created to create an entire stove to cook an entire meal, whether you're out of power or whatever the situation. So let's drill our holes and we'll go on to the next step. Now I'm changing out the super small drill bit for one that's just slightly larger. This is probably a 1/16 of an inch or maybe a millimeter in size. We're going to put that into our drill, and you have to have a drill that doesn't have too much torque, and you have to make sure your drill bit is perfectly straight because you want to make the cleanest hole possible. And this is going to go right in the center of our stove. This is going to be our fueling port, and we just need, remember, this metal is really thin, so you just don't put any pressure on it. Let the drill bit do the work for you. Now you can use it as is, and there's 1 or 2 other components we need to add to it, but what I wanted to do is create something that was up off the table, that if there was just a little bit of heat coming off this, I don't want to scorch my table, so I've created something that kind of stands on its own. I'm taking a hose clamp, and we're just going to put it right up to the base of it there. I'm going to have to loosen it up just a little bit. We want it to be right at the base, but not covering where we're going to take our lid off. So if we have it too close to our lid, it won't be easy to remove the lid, or it may be completely sealed. So let's tighten that back up just a little bit where it doesn't fall off. Turn it upside down, and then I'm taking some very small nails and just sticking it in 4 spots around the base. It may take a little bit of pressure to get it into the point where you want it. And you may have to readjust your hose clamp because you want it to have just enough room to put your nails in. All right, so we've got 4 nails on here, and this is going to be the legs of our stove. You don't have to do this, but if you're going to be cooking on a picnic table or somewhere flammable where it could fall over, you might want to use a shorter size nail, but I just want to make sure that the stove is elevated just a little bit. All right, our stove is pretty stable here. Of course, you can still knock it over because it is really small, so just a quick flick of your hand could knock it over. So you just want to be careful with it. This is not a toy. This is something for an adult to use on a camping trip or in the case of an emergency. Just remember, this is not for kids. Because you may want to add an extra leg or have your nails a little bit closer to that side so it's less likely to fall over. But again, it's not perfectly stable, so you could use something like a bolt. You could attach it with some JB Quick Weld, and it would be even more stable because of the weight. But what I'm trying to do is to minimize the weight on this so it doesn't take up a lot of weight in my backpack. Now I want to show you my mess kit that I use on a 2 to 3 day hike, and this little stove can cook multiple meals. Obviously you're going to need to have your fuel stored separately. You can have it in something like this. This was an garlic oil bottle, and I just keep a little bit of really pure denatured alcohol in this. That's the best thing to use. Today I'm going to use 70% so you can see the flame, but the denatured alcohol puts off little to no flame, but it burns very pure. So something like this is where you could store your oil and you could use the dropper to refill as you need it. And this is completely sealed tight. You don't have to worry about it spilling. The other thing is some of these stainless steel containers, they're very small, they're waterproof, they have a gasket, so it prevents any water from getting into it. And I even tested it to make sure it would float. So if you were to drop it into a stream, lake, pond, it would still continue to float. Also, you're gonna need, I don't really recommend matches, but you can use matches, but I like a torch because it's a little bit easier to get it lit. It takes a little bit to heat the fuel up. So if you do decide to go with matches, you may want to put a little bit of extra fuel around the top of it so it can heat the gases and ignite the fuel a little bit better. But this is a complete mess kit here. This would be a coffee cup and something to eat, let's say a can of beans or whatever you have on your trip with you. Any type of meats or soups you have, you could eat in there, and the same thing with a coffee mug. I'll show you how I make coffee on a hiking trip. This little thing right here is great. I put some coffee grounds in it. I get my water to boiling, put the coffee grounds in it. It's about maybe 1/3 full, and then I add some cooler water to cool it off because the coffee is actually boiling hot by the time it's been on the stove. So something like this keeps the coffee grounds out of my coffee, but I can make a cup of coffee. I can make some soup or anything else I want to make with my tiny micro stove. So next I want to show you how I elevate my cookware and keep it away from the stove so it can burn at just the right temperature. I bought some of these grill toppers, and they're usually sold at grocery stores, anywhere that sells grills, and you can cut this into a strip exactly the right width you need to elevate your cookware above the flame. This can easily be cut with a pair of scissors. It is metal and is specifically made to use on grills. It's not going to last forever, but you can make 3 or 4 of these strips and carry it on multiple trips. Now I also have this stainless steel mesh. It's a lot thicker and stronger, and you would have to cut this with probably a pair of 10 snips and make it exactly the same size or height that you want. But as for this demonstration, I'm using the grill topper because it's so easy to cut and easy to put together. But I'll put the link to the Amazon on all the items I'm using, the grill topper and this and everything else in the video. I bought an entire set of these stainless steel containers. I really liked them, and I have made other projects with this, and I'll link the video up above where I made an eternal candle out of one of these stainless steel. So I'll show you that video up above there if you want to take a look at it. But what we have here is I put in some of my matches, and also I've made it where I can make the matches completely waterproof, and I can light them. These matches now are safety matches. You can't hardly buy strike anywhere matches anymore. So if you want to, you can take a sheet of this right here, this product, and cut it into a small circle, and it's got adhesive backing on it. You can put it in there, and so you can easily light it, and your matches will be completely dry. So I'll show you how it works. And so it's a lot easier to have something like this if you don't have a flame torch lighter. But I do recommend the torch lighter because it's easier to get your stove lit with this. All right, so next let me pull what we're going to set our cookware on top. This is a strip that I just showed you of the grill topper, and you just roll it out like that. Like I said, this is not super heavy duty. You can cut it with a pair of scissors. It's not going to last forever, but it will last on many, many camping trips before you need to replace it. And since the grill topper is pretty good size, you can cut 3 of them and have multiple backups. So that's what you're going to set your cookware on top. Makes it super easy to cook. This table's not exactly stable, so I'm not trying to move it a lot so it won't fall over. But anyways, that's where you're going to put your stove, right in the middle. I'll show you right here. And the table is also not level as well as being unstable, so I've got 2 issues there. But anyways, that's how we're going to cook on this stove, and I'll show you how we refill. Again, using a used bottle like this, you can just put your fuel back in it and make it super easy to cook with and store your cooking fluids. Now, as I said, you're not limited to something like this. You could use a larger one. This is like used for a hair product, and so just any type like that. But you want something that has a small opening that you can refill, and makes it easier to put your alcohol fuel back into the stove without making a huge mess. So even though this is pretty small, it takes several times to refill, but you can use something quite a bit larger, or you can use a large marinade injector. I have one of those in my kitchen, and sometimes I carry that in my backpack so I can just do it with one refill rather than having to do about 7 or 8 refills with this smaller dropper. But this one takes up a super small amount of space in my backpack. So we're going to do a stopwatch and see how long this lasts for, but first we need to cover our fuel port here with an older penny. Don't use a newer penny. They're no longer made out of copper. This one probably was minted in the early 70s. I believe it was 1975. So just remember to make sure you cover your fuel port before you light it. Let's light and we'll start the stopwatch right after. So as you can see, I stopped it at the stopwatch at about 17 minutes, and I think it was 24 seconds, and I held my hand over it. I started to go get a piece of paper to show you that it was still putting out a very, very low invisible flame that you couldn't see, but I believe it's died. By the time I got back, it would have been probably completely out. But I think it ran for about 18 minutes on about what appears to be maybe an ounce to ounce and a half of rubbing alcohol. Again, if you're using this inside, you'd want to use a more pure form of alcohol, like denatured alcohol that won't put off any harmful vapors or anything like that. Remember, the penny you use is just to stop the main fill port from shooting a flame out, because you want the burners to be as small as possible so you don't burn up your fuel before you need to. And you could quickly cook, probably in 8 to 12 minutes, a can of whatever your favorite meal is on the trail. Just put one of these stainless steel pots over it. Use the device here that I showed you. You could put your pot on top of it and cook on it for a nice solid 10 to 12 minutes and have it really piping hot. You have to take it off, stir it, and then put it back. You can make a cup of coffee, as I showed you, by having a filter like this, putting your coffee in there and let it heat up maybe a third or half a cup of hot water, and then add some cooler water in there. So it's absolutely great for a camping stove, a hiker stove, an emergency stove, and a power outage. So it stores away so neatly, and I highly recommend these stainless steel containers, because you don't want to cook directly out of a food can, because they do spray the inside of that can with a type of waxy, plasticky stuff. So I would advise, make sure you cook in a stainless steel device like this. So guys, really quickly, I'm going to demonstrate making some coffee. I've got my coffee filter inside of here. We're going to use about a half a cup of water. We're going to spoon in about 1 to maybe 2 spoons of our coffee grounds. And then I'll show you exactly how quickly this coffee will come to a boil. So guys, in this particular video, I use 70% alcohol, and that's why you're able to see the flame. If I use denatured or this 99%, the flame would be a lot harder to see. It'd be more of a blue, clean flame. That's why there's so much soot being created by this particular stove, this particular demonstration. So I would recommend the denatured alcohol #1 and the 99% #2. You can fit a bottle like this in your backpack in a pantry for emergencies, and it will last for hours and hours and hours. You can see this will burn for almost, what did we say, 18 and a half, 19 minutes on about 1.5, maybe 2 ounces. I don't even think this will hold 2 ounces, but it will cook a meal in about 10 to 15 minutes, and you'll have no problem using it. Out on the trail, something like this would be a lifesaver, because it takes up such a small amount of space, and you space is a premium when you have just a backpack and there's nothing else and very little room to carry it. So guys, I really appreciate you watching. I hope if you have a question or if you have a comment, you'll like and you'll also subscribe. If you have a question, please subscribe first because I tend to answer those questions the quickest. So guys, have a great day and I really appreciate you watching.